Welcome back to another edition of the Saturday to Sunday Football Podcast. I am Paul Perticchese, and thank you for joining me. As always, our summer scouting continues, previewing the upcoming college football season and the first look at our 2024 NFL Draft rankings. If you missed the last episode, Jeff and I covered the quarterbacks. Tonight, we're going to turn the page to the running backs. Jeff, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. It's been a good week. It's been it feels good to be back into the swing and the rhythm. And honestly, I see the first name on our list and I can't wait to get into it. But before we start, same thing as last time. What's the 30,000 foot view? What's our big overview of the college football running back landscape?
Yeah, so I think when I look at this I'd be very surprised. We had Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, go, two in the top 12. I don't think we're looking at any running backs going in the first round next year. Maybe one sneaks in the back end, because I think when you look at this running back class, I think it's a strong class. I think the day two is made up of some really interesting running backs. But right now, I don't see that complete player or that special trait characteristic like Jahmyr Gibbs in terms of its receiving capabilities mixed with that. I don't see that in this class. And we definitely don't have a Bijan Robinson type in this class. We have a lot of guys who I think maybe one or two could materialize into being what we thought of Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker the year before, and other guys who we've seen go day two, go round two, go round three. So I think it's a deep class, but I don't think we have that elite level star power at the top like we had last year with Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs going where they went last year. For the people watching on YouTube, same thing as last time. As Jeff introduces the player and my rankings, we will show the scouting report, which is from the Next Wave, the 2024 scouting notebook, which is not even released yet to the public. Around Labor Day, that'll drop as a part of our premium package notebooks. But I'm gonna share the scouting notebook now, and Jeff's gonna kind of get us into here to talking about my rankings a little bit, and then we'll do the same thing that we did for the quarterback show. Quick 1 minute or so recap of what I saw on film. A little bit talking about these players from a variety of angles. And then, we'll keep it moving to try to hit on a lot of guys to kind of get you set up for the college football season. We know these rankings are very fluid, and it's very easy for things to change over the course of the year. So this is just our first look.
Yeah, and when you mentioned the star power of the class, there's nothing anomalous like a Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, but we've seen players like Jonathan Taylor, Nick Chubb, J.K. Dobbins come out early to mid-late round two and become really impactful players and honestly superstars at the NFL level too. So I think there's a lot of meat on the bone in this class, and we're gonna just start. Your screen has it up there. I love this. I love this rank. I love this take. Trey Benson, Florida State junior, 6 foot 219, number one running back on this list. It might be a little bit surprising too, because last year he had under 1,000 yards rushing, just a little under, 9 touchdowns. He had 13 receptions, 144 yards in the air, nothing gaudy there. 6.4 yards per carry is a pretty impressive number. But why is Trey Benson topping the list?
Yeah, so Trey Benson is a guy when I watched him and analyzed his film, very good size and frame. I think he's got above average to good athleticism, movement skills, burst and acceleration, especially at his 6 feet, 219 pounds. I came away very impressed with that. I think he's got very good to great contact balance, ability to absorb contact, pick up extra yards. I love the play strength, the power, the toughness. He's breaking up tackles, picking up those yards, those tough yards on the inside. But I like the footwork, the vision, the patience. To me, he shows the complete package. He's got agility and elusiveness, even at that 219, to make people miss in the open field. Obviously, there's some things I want to see him improve upon, more involved in the passing game. I want to see some receiving production. I want to see him clean up pass protection a little bit. But when I view him as a round two type talent, leader of a committee backfield, or the starting running back on early downs that best fits in an inside gap or zone run scheme.
Yeah, and honestly, I have to put my piece out there because I've been regretting it for months now. I missed the opportunity to take Trey Benson in my Devi draft. I like the names I got as well, but you know, I'm just praying that I wish I got a do-over on this one because he has just been skyrocketing up my boards. I think he belongs in this top tier. You know, people got excited for Javonte Williams. And, you know, with the way that he was creating yards after contact, Trey Benson, I think, even broke Javonte Williams, you know, PFF yards after contact or force mixed tackles mark. One of those ones. So it just shows how tough of a runner he is. Let's go to the next player on the list, and I think the surprises are going to just keep coming because I've seen a little bit of, you know, hate. You know, maybe hate's a strong word, but I think people have really cooled on Blake Corum, the senior out of Michigan, 5'8", 200 pounds, draft eligible last year, didn't come out. He had the injury, but he had a great year, 1,500 yards rushing, 6 yards a carry, 18 touchdowns, and a little bit of work through the air too. Not what he's known for, but he was just tearing apart the defenses while playing at Michigan. So, you know, Blake Corum, number 2 on the list here.
Yeah, so Blake Corum is a guy who I think if he didn't suffer that injury last year, probably comes out, probably is a day 2 pick. Obviously not at the Bijan or Jahmyr Gibbs, but I think he would have been in the conversation to be the RB3 in last year's class. I know it was Zach Charbonnet. I think Corum would have been right there in that mix, whether it was before or after Charbonnet and then Devin A-Chain. But what I like about him, little undersized, compact frame. Good athleticism, short area bursts, and explosiveness. Average speed and acceleration. I don't think that's his calling card, but to me, he's got great level footwork, lateral quickness, suddenness, agility, change of direction skills, elusiveness, and cutting ability. I see very good vision, and I think there's more. I think his receiving skills are good. Michigan just wasn't asked to do it a lot. So yeah, there's some things that, you know, the size is always going to be a concern. Pass protection, limitations in the NFL, but he's not a bell cow. But NFL teams are okay with that, which is why I still think he's going to be a round 2 type talent, be a big part of a committee backfield, and could work his way to even being more involved in the pass game.
Yeah, I mean, before we knew he was coming back to school, Corum was my number 3 back and only behind Bijan and Gibbs. And those we heard those guys were round 1 prospects. You know, and I think it's a hot take a bit to have him here because a lot of people, you know, are on his backfield mate. I like Corum, you know, much better in the Michigan backfield, but our number 3 running back right behind him, Donovan Edwards. This is where the hype in the Michigan backfield is. He's a junior, his first draft year eligibility now, 6 foot, 205. He was running behind Corum, but even still had nearly 1,000 yards. He had 7 to carry, 7 touchdowns, a little bit more through the air. He's known a little bit more as a receiving back, home run hitter. What else is he bringing to the table?
So Donovan Edwards is a guy that I wouldn't be surprised if he's RB1 in this draft class next year. I just think good size, average frame. We're talking great level athleticism, speed, movement skills, acceleration, and bursts. Really good to great footwork, cutting ability, agility, and elusiveness to make people miss in the open field. Good vision and patience. He's got very good receiving skills, which I think is then almost holds back Blake Corum in that regards a little bit because Edwards is even better than that. There's some things that I would like to see him improve upon this year. Some contact balance issues. I'd like them to be able to fight through contact a little bit, show a little bit more power, and pick up yards after that contact. But to me, when I watch him play, I think he's a day 2 guy right now. I think he could be the lead of a committee backfield, but I think he's got more 3-down potential than most of the backs in this upcoming draft class. So I think he's got 3-down potential. He's best in an inside or outside zone run scheme. I really like Donovan Edwards. I think he's squarely a round 2 guy now with his ceiling pointing up.
Yeah, you know, call me a hater. I'm not as in on Donovan Edwards, and I think it's my bias of what types of running backs I like and I see translate to the NFL level. And I get the excitement because when running backs do great things in space and hit home runs, like people get excited. Those make highlight reels. You're gonna see that on his film. He is elusive. I have, you know, no qualms with anything you said. You know, but I do think contact balance, power, I think even a little bit of decision making, you know, it's one of those ones where maybe he becomes someone like Travis Etienne at the NFL level. And I think that'd be a really good comp. And even then we saw Jacksonville invest in Tank Bigsby to run with them, right? So I don't think, you know, anyway, that's where I sit on Donovan Edwards, and I'm also lower on our next player here as well. And I feel horrible about it because this is going to be the guy who's number one on almost everyone's boards, and that's TreVeyon Henderson, Ohio State junior, 5'10", 215. Talk about another big play running back, explosive in the field. He had some injuries last year, if I remember right. 571 yards, 5 a carry, 6 touchdowns. We've seen him in the receiving game in years past too. Last year was just 4 receptions for 28 yards. So he's not number one on your board. Is that because there's developmental areas, or is this just a big tier? And is there just that much that you like about TreVeyon as well?
Well, this is a pretty big tier. I have about 7 guys who I consider day 2 caliber prospects. And at the running back position, I don't think there's a huge margin. I think some of these guys will eventually separate themselves and maybe be that early day 2, in the 40s, 50s range, and some other guys will fall down. But I think deciphering between that right now, I think it's very hard. So I have a large tier here of 7 guys who I think warrant going in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft, mostly on round 2 and round 3. So let's just kind of dig right in here a little bit and give you what I saw on film. TreVeyon Henderson, above average size and frame, very good to great athleticism, speed, acceleration, burst, and explosiveness. We didn't see it as much in 2022, but we saw it on 2021. It's on the film that he has that speed, acceleration, burst, and explosiveness, the lateral quickness to get to the outside. I think he's got very good footwork, change of direction skills, cutting ability and elusiveness. I think he runs with a good pad level, shows good play strength and contact balance at that 5'10", 215 that you alluded to. Obviously, some concerns, the inconsistent production, sophomore versus freshman seasons, very dramatically different production. You'd like to see him more involved in the passing game, similar to what we talked about with Trey Benson, right? Only 4 catches last year, not something he's done a lot of. I think there's some inconsistent decision-making, vision, and patience at times. That's something that is, I think, critical at the NFL level, and he's got to clean that up a little bit. So he's went from being like RB1 consensus, and he's fallen down a little bit, but I think he's in the mix, and he could really bounce back. I think he could be a part of a starting backfield or a part of a committee day 2 type prospect.
Yeah, I mean, again, the type of running back that I like. I think you mentioned his developmental areas are what's going to hold me back, but he can be dynamic. You see, what happens when you marry home run hitting with the type of stuff that I fell in love with Trey Benson, the yards after contact, the contact balance, the power, you get my number 1 back, and that's Raheim Sanders, Arkansas junior, 6'2", 236. He had 1,400 rushing yards, 6 a carry, 10 touchdowns, a lot of work in the receiving game, 28 receptions, 271 yards. That's good in college. 2 touchdowns. I mean, you see him make big plays. You see him, grind out tough yards. I think there is a lot of developmental areas, but to me, that just means there's an even higher ceiling. How do you round out Rocket Sanders' game?
So Raheim Rocket Sanders, rare size and frame for the running back at 6'2", 236. Good athleticism, burst speed, acceleration, and movement skills, especially for a man at that size and frame. Very good play strength, power, contact balance, and leg drive. Good footwork with very good vision and patience with the ability to one cut and get upfield quickly. I think average in terms of lateral quickness, I don't think that's his strength. Pass protection is probably about average. To me, the things that are concern me a little bit, I don't see a lot of make you miss ability, especially in the backfield. And I think when he's in the open field, if he's got a runway, he could just, hit the home run with his speed and size, like almost like a Derrick Henry. But I don't think he's going to make people miss with his cutting ability, change of direction, or elusiveness in those regards. I think he's going to make people miss by taking the proper angles and just get into the second level with that size and frame and just run past people. He's had a couple ball security issues that I'd like to see cleaned up, but he's another guy. Day 2, I think he's a round 2, round 3 guy, part of a committee backfield at the next level.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's more like the 5th or 6th running back off the board, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he's the 1st. There's another one. We've got another size freak, as our number 6 running back. And I think you guys all know I'm talking about Braelon Allen. We've heard his name since he was a freshman. He's now a junior, 6'1", 240. Yeah, honestly, when I say this, his production is a dip from what he did his freshman year and the expectations, it's still great production. 1,200 250 yards, 5 a carry, 11 touchdowns. He still pitched in a little bit in the receiving game, 13 receptions, 100 yards. My only worry with Braelon Allen is that maybe he's not as athletic as we thought he was coming in as a freshman, and maybe he runs a little bit slow. Do you have any other areas of concern, or, just all highlights, all strengths?
So yeah, Braelon Allen, I think there's a similarity to Raheim Rocket Sanders. He's got the rare size and frame. I think Braelon Allen's got good athleticism. I don't think it's great or elite. I think it's good athleticism, good burst, good acceleration. To me, the long speed is probably just average. I bet he runs like a 4.58 or a 4.6, and at his size, that's fine. So I don't think he's running a 4.4 or even a 4.5 flat. I think it's going to be higher than that. But to me, he's got very good vision and patience. He does get to play behind what is always a strong Wisconsin offensive line. But I think he's got good footwork with the ability to one cut. He runs with good varying in terms of his run tempo. I think he does a good job varying his run tempo. Very good to great play strength, contact balance, physicality, and power to break tackles. I have some concerns about his ability to get to the outside in terms of his lateral quickness. I don't think there's a lot of make you miss in the backfield or in the open field. Again, he needs that pathway. I think, he's a part of a committee backfield, not a lot in the pass game, but right now I'd put him in that day 2 mix.
Yeah, and, I'm a big Braelon Allen fan. I think it's partly because I love seeing what Derrick Henry's done, and those are the comps you're going to see. He's going to win the same way, right? Your developmental areas of concern, like you said, can he get to the outside, that lateral quickness, start and stop ability, too much bulk. You're not really going to move that thing around, but that body around in freakish ways, unless he somehow, becomes, an otherworldly athlete. I think, you set us up with some good expectations there. You mentioned there were 7 players in your tier 1 running backs. That gets us to number 7 here. Will Shipley, another guy we've known from the Devy radar, still at Clemson. He's a junior, 5'11", 207. Last year, almost 1,200 yards rushing. Again, about 5.5 yards a carry, 15 touchdowns, a lot more. This is where we're seeing a lot more track record on, through the air. He is known for his pass catching, 38 receptions, 242 yards. Give us the overview for Shipley's game.
Yeah, if Clemson hadn't really started to struggle post Trevor Lawrence and struggle not being elite with the Georgias and the Alabamas of the world, I think the narrative would be very different. So when I watch Will Shipley play, to me, he's average size and frame, good athleticism, movement skills, burst, acceleration, and speed. To me, my favorite thing about him, I love his footwork. To me, it's very good to great footwork, the vision, the patience. I see a lot of natural run instincts. I don't know if a lot of the guys I could say that about in this top 7, but I think Shipley has very natural run instincts combined with that vision, patience, and footwork, the ability to one cut and get up the field quickly. Even at 207 pounds, and he's got good contact balance. And then he's the first one with a real X factor in terms of the receiving capabilities, very good receiving skills. Is there some things that I'd like to see him improve upon? Yeah, he doesn't run with a lot of power. I think there will be some limitations in terms of his workload at the next level. He doesn't have a lot of make you miss ability in terms of, sharp cuts, but I think he's probably functional in terms of his agility and elusiveness. Another guy who I think day 2, part of a committee backfield.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing Shipley can really do for his game, it's not like he's going to be able to put a bunch more, size on that frame, but we've seen small guys hit hard, hit tough, right? And it's about leverage. And if he learns to be able to finish runs with leverage, I think he's going to really carve out, a lead role in the NFL. I mentioned, okay, so that was tier 1, top 7 running backs. Those will be the guys that we're looking for on day 2, as we see it right now. Maybe some guys fall out of there. Other guys will come into there. That's going to be the excitement as we go through the season. But the next names that we're going to go through are typically the day 3 guys. And again, it's another big tier. There's going to be a lot of shuffling, but let's just start with number 8, Rasheen Ali out of Marshall. He's a redshirt junior, 5'11", 203. He only played a couple games last year, 300 yards, 5 a carry. But he had a really good production the year before, 1,400 yards, 46 receptions, 350 yards on through the air as well. Give us, your profile on Rasheen Ali.
Yeah, so Rasheen Ali is a guy who I'm very intrigued with. I liked him more than last year when people were hyping up Dwayne McBride at times. I like Rasheen Ali more than that. Obviously, then he suffered the injury, didn't play much last year. But when I watch him, I see good size, average frame. I see good athleticism, speed, burst, and acceleration. I see good footwork, agility, vision, and cutting ability to make people miss in the open field. I see above average to good contact balance and play strength to break tackles. And like we talked about with Will Shipley, very good receiving production and skills. This is, to me, a guy part of a committee backfield, but the upside to play on all 3 downs. He can be the pass receiving back. He can run inside or outside zone or gap seam. So I think he's very scheme independent. Right now, I have an early day 3 grade on him. I almost could even say I put a round 3, round 4 type, right there. But I'm intrigued by Ali. I think if he bounces back to his 2021 form, he's gonna move up the ranks.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right there. I think what we saw in 2021 gives us some excitement for 2023. Jase McClellan, number 9 running back, 5'10", 207, the senior in Alabama. Last year, 650 yards, 7 touchdowns, 14 receptions, 173 yards. This is ostensibly his time to shine at Alabama. What is he going to bring to the table that would, have him take over the first role, or what other developmental concerns are we going to be looking for him to improve his draft stock?
So Jase McClellan, average size and frame, good athleticism, movement skills, and short area bursts, good footwork, agility, cutting ability, and elusiveness to make people miss. I really like his vision. To me, that's his best trait. Very good vision and patience. He runs with good play strength and contact balance, even at 207 pounds. And I think he's got above average receiving skills. I think Alabama is going to put a little bit more on his plate this year. He kind of had to take a step back in his growth and development when they got Jahmyr Gibbs to transfer there. So I think McClellan is kind of going to be the guy that could break out in that Alabama offense and be a legit star there this year. Right now, I think he's probably depth to part of a committee backfield, but the fact that he can play on all 3 downs and run effectively inside, outside, zone, or gap run scheme, I think adds to and enhances his value, that I think this year could see 1,100 yards, double-digit touchdowns. And if that happens, now I think we're talking about him back on the round 3, round 4 mix, if that comes to fruition.
All right, we're going to move into number 10 now. Bucky Irving, junior out of Oregon, 5'10", 194 pounds, 1,100 yards last year, almost 7 a carry, and some good work through the air with 30 receptions and 300 yards. Give us, what are we expecting from Bucky Irving this year?
Yeah, so Bucky Irving, average size. I think he could add to the frame a little bit. The 194 right now is a little concerning. Good athleticism, speed, and bursts. Very good footwork, movement skills, agility, cutting ability, elusiveness, and change of direction skills. Good receiving skills. He runs a good pad level, average contact balance, vision, and patience. To me, he profiles as part of a committee backfield or a pass-catching running back capable of playing on all 3 downs, best in an inside or outside zone run scheme. Some areas where I'd like to see some improvement from him. Like I said, I already talked about it. He's got to add to his frame a little bit. He's got to show that he can run with a little bit more power. I think there's some inconsistency in terms of his pass production, his decision making, and I think at times he tries to kick too many runs to the outside. He's good athletics ability, but I don't think he's got that home run hitting ability that he can beat everybody to the outside corner, especially at the NFL level. I think right now he profiles as probably like a round 4, round 5 guy, but that Oregon scheme really sets him up to be successful in college and could potentially move him up draft boards.
One thing we do know is that rising offenses, productive offenses, can really help on the draft capital for these skill players. And we talked a little bit about it with Bo Nix. Oregon really made some marks last year, and they are a team that I think is going to have some fireworks this year as well. We're going to move on to the 5'9", 204-pound senior out of Mississippi State, Jaquavius Marks. 600 yards last year, but 6 a carry, 9 touchdowns, and 50 receptions, 290 yards through the air. Definitely making his mark in the passing game. What else is he bringing to the table besides the pass catching?
So Jo'quavious Marks is going to be an offensive weapon at the next level, and I think that's intriguing to NFL teams. I think he's got a Dave grade right now. I think he profiles as a pass-catching running back or a lesser part of a committee or a change of pace, but I think it's all about that offensive versatility that he brings to the table. He's got average size and frame, good athleticism, speed, movement skills, burst and acceleration, good to very good lateral quickness, the agility, elusiveness, and cutting ability, I think is where he shines because he's got great receiving skills. So then he can use that agility and elusiveness and footwork to make people miss in the open field. That versatility to make him that offensive threat. He could impact the game as a rusher, a receiver, or a returner. Yeah, there's some concerns and development needed. He doesn't have the natural run instincts of some of the other guys we've talked about. There's some inconsistencies in his vision and his patience. And if he's going to be a great pass catching running back at the next level, he's got to clean up his pass protection. And I think that's the number one thing we need to see growth from him this year.
If you follow me on Twitter, you know my favorite running back in all of NFL history, at least, I've got a bias to the more recent ages because of my age, but is Frank Gore. And we're going to travel down to southern Mississippi and take a look at his son, senior, 5'7", 198, Frank Gore Jr., 1,382 rushing yards, 6 a carry, 9 touchdowns, 19 receptions, 219 yards. Is he anything like his dad?
So Frank Gore Jr., really fascinating prospect. If he was 2 inches taller and like 10 pounds heavier, we're probably talking about a guy who would be talked about in that first tier, talked about as a top 50 pick, because while undersized, good athleticism, movement skills and bursts, average to above average long speed and acceleration, very good footwork, change of direction skills, cutting ability, agility, and elusiveness to make people miss. That is his calling card. So it's different than his dad, Frank Gore. Frank Gore Jr. is all about that footwork, the change of direction, the sharp cuts, making people miss. He combines that with good vision and patience, a very versatile offensive weapon. He helps out in the pass game. Obviously, running is his calling card, but he's also had a lot of success throwing the football, doing a lot of different things off the wildcat and stuff like that. Obviously, the level of competition is a little bit of a concern. The size and frame is a major concern, especially the size. Can he fix his pass protection issues, and what type of workload can he have at the next level?
Several years back, my favorite mover of the draft was Devin Singletary, and I love rooting for the underdogs. If Frank Gore Jr. has the work, any work ethic close to his dad, I think we're going to actually see, what he can do to break those odds and really contribute on the NFL level.
Jeff, let me just jump in right there. We're seeing it right now with Deuce Vaughn. I know it's just preseason. I know it's just training camp highlights, but we're seeing a guy like Deuce Vaughn show that he might be able to belong. And we were both big fans, if I remember correctly, of Deuce Vaughn. If he has that, like you're talking about, that toughness of his dad, you combine that with the skill sets that he does have, there is a home. If Deuce Vaughn can go in round 5 of the NFL draft and making noise in his first training camp in preseason, I think Frank Gore could be on that type of path, because he's got some of those Deuce Vaughn characteristics and traits that make people miss. He's just doing it at a little bit of a smaller program than Deuce did. But I really think Frank Gore's got a home. He's probably a little higher on my rankings than other people's, but it's the same reason like I like Deuce Vaughn. There's traits about it that I think are going to translate. And then you put in the kind of the pedigree with his dad being who he is. I'm intrigued by Frank Gore Jr. at the next level. I think he'll have a monster year this year, and I think it will translate to being like probably a round 5-ish pick, and then we'll see what he could do there as some part of a backfield, whether it's depth, whether it's a lesser part of a committee, but he's got 3 down skill sets. He's got some offensive playmaking ability in a variety of ways. I'm intrigued by Frank Gore Jr.
Thank you for bringing up my other regret of the offseason, and it's not coming away with any Deuce Vaughn. Like you said, I was such a huge fan of his. I think I called him the best inside runner of the class too, because he could just make people miss in a phone booth. Yeah, and I think the pedigree will be a way to at least get Frank Gore Jr. drafted as well. I think we see it a lot. People will take those shots. Moving on to number 13, Nate Noel, Appalachia State, senior, 5'10", 185. So we've got a little bit of a size concern. He's had 600 yards, 7 a carry, 6 touchdowns, pitched in through the air, 24 receptions, 145 yards, 2 touchdowns. For Nate Noel, What are we getting with his game?
So Noel, very similar to Frank Gore Jr. And the year before, he had 1,200 yards rushing. So this is a guy who has production at the collegiate level. But we're talking about another guy, undersized, but good to very good athleticism, speed, acceleration, burst and movement skills, very good footwork, agility, change of direction skills, cutting ability and elusiveness to make people miss, good receiving production as well. Some things that I think he's probably average in terms of vision and patience. If he can improve upon that and add those to be strengths, I think we're really talking about a guy who could be a weapon at the next level. Some of the developments and concerns, they're not going to be fixed. The size is going to be an issue in terms of his frame, the power, the play strength, the contact balance, workload limitations, and probably pass protection. Those are things that are not going to improve. But I think his traits make him worthy of a guy who could be a part of a backfield in a depth role or a change of pace or a receiving running back. I think keep him on the outside and the perimeter. He could be intriguing to a team as somewhere around 5, round 6 type pick.
Let's move on to somebody the analytics probably will like again, a little bit better size, size, frame, and production here. So 6'1", 215. We're talking about Carson Steele, the junior from UCLA, who had 1,443 yards rushing, 10 touchdowns, and 29 receptions for 166 yards. The production's there, the size and the frame is there. What about his other skills?
So Carson Steele played his first 2 years at Ball State, now making the big, transfer to UCLA, taking over for Zach Charbonnet. Very good size and frame, as you alluded to. I think the athleticism is very good overall. He was on Bruce Feldman's freak list in 2022. I don't think the list has came out just yet for this year. I'm sure he's going to be on it again. Average to above average lateral quickness, burst, and acceleration. He's got great play strength, power, toughness, physicality, and finishing ability. He's got good footwork, that one cut ability, development or concerning things. Yeah, the level of competition. I'm always a little biased sometimes trying to project. I think this is a big year for him and he could skyrocket up these rankings. I have some long speed concerns, even though he's a great athlete in terms of being on that Bruce Feldman. I don't think it's really the long speed. I think he's more of like a 4.58 to 4.6 guy. I want to see him clean up his pass protection, but I think he's a running back capable of playing on all 3 downs because he's got that good pass catching ability, and I'm intrigued by him.
We're going to move out to one of the most popular programs here, Ohio State. We're going to talk about Miyan Williams, the counterpunch to TreVeyon Henderson, Jr., 5'9", 234. Talk about a hefty counterpunch. He had 800 yards last year, 6 to carry, 14 touchdowns. He was always in the end zone. I think you saw that a lot. Just 5 receptions, 27 yards. What's his counter to TreVeyon Henderson? How does he fit in with his skill set?
So Miyan Williams is the perfect complement to TreVeyon Henderson. Average size, good frame, athleticism is just average. Same thing with the burst and acceleration. But we're talking about a guy who's got very good play strength, power, toughness, physicality, and contact balance. He shows great leg drive, runs with a good pad level. He's got good vision. He's got the ability to one cut. We're talking about a north-south power gap run inside offense is where he would shine. I think reasons for concern in terms of how his game translates to the next level. He's going to not offer much in terms of his receiving production or his receiving skills. He's not going to make people miss in a phone booth or in the open field. The agility, elusiveness is not there. I don't think the long speed's going to be there. I don't think he's going to be a guy who's going to get to the outside. That lateral quickness is just not there. So to me, he profiles as a guy who's a depth running back to maybe a part of a committee down the line, early down runner, but limited to a power gap inside run scheme, in my opinion.
I really like Miyan Williams, and I think he's going to. I don't know that there's many bell cows in the NFL these days, so I think what he's going to do is he's going to do something like Roschon Johnson did. He's going to find his way onto a depth chart, and I think what we're going to start seeing is him be the thorn in the side of everybody's favorite fantasy sleeper pick, and I think he's going to carve out, I think, a pretty decent NFL career. Isaiah Davis, South Dakota State senior, 6 foot, 227, our number 16 running back, 1,450 yards, 6 a carry, 15 touchdowns, 20 receptions, 170 through the air. Smaller school. I haven't gotten my eyes on him, so when I turn on the tape, what am I going to see?
So Isaiah Davis out of South Dakota State, we're talking about a guy who's got great size and frame. Athleticism is just average. Movement skills, average. Acceleration, speed, lateral quickness, and agility, all average. But he's got good vision, patience, footwork, and short area bursts. Very good play strength, power, toughness, contact balance, and power to pick up extra yards after contact. I love the physicality. I love the toughness that we see when you watch Isaiah Davis run. We've seen other people, productive skill players, come out of South Dakota State. I think Isaiah Davis is a guy who could be a part of a depth running back committee, maybe work his way to a lesser part. I think he's more of an early down, inside gap run scheme type player. Can't do anything about the level of competition. It is what it is. I'd like to see him improve his receiving skills. He had 21 catches, but just for 173 yards. He's got to clean up pass protection. I don't think he's going to make people, miss in tight spaces. So the change of direction, cutting ability, stop, start, acceleration, those are things that we just haven't been able to see yet from the small school prospect.
Let's move on to one of the more fun names here, and that's Ulysses Bentley IV out of University of Mississippi, senior, 5'10", 201. Last year, I think it was injuries. Didn't see much of him, but from 2021 at a SMU, 600 yards, 6 a carry, 4 touchdowns, 19 receptions, 90 yards. There's not a huge history of production here. So when you've got the tape on, what is he bringing to the table?
So Ulysses Bentley IV, he's going to be a satellite player at the next level. He's going to be, this year he's going to be working tandem with Quinshon Judkins. But to me, he's got average size and frame, good athleticism, movement skills, burst and acceleration, good to very good footwork, agility, change of direction skills, cutting ability and elusiveness. He's got good vision and patience. I think right now the receiving skills is probably just functional at best. I don't think he's got great long speed, but I think he's better in tight spaces in terms of making people miss. I think he'll be a good complement to, like I said, to that offense this year. Some areas where I'd like to see him improve: his contact balance, his play strength, clean up some issues in pass protection. I don't think he's going to be a guy who's going to carry a heavy workload at the next level, but I think we're talking about a satellite player, depth running back, maybe a little change of pace, outside zone scheme, probably best for him. We're probably talking late day Pari type player here, but a guy who can make the depth chart.
We said at this point we'd check in here and see our time going, and I think we have the time to actually get into the profiles of these next 4 players. And I'm excited about that because we got 2 from the same school, and we'll start with Josh Williams from LSU, senior, 5'9", 209. Last year, 530 yards rushing, 5 a carry, 6 touchdowns, 21 receptions, 132 yards. One of the 2 backs we're going to be profiling. What is Josh Williams bringing to the table for LSU Tigers?
So Josh Williams was a walk-on who is just basically symbolizes everything about hard work, effort. That's the type of player he is as well. Average size and frame, average athleticism, burst and movement skills. Very good play strength, contact balance, toughness, and physicality. He's always churning his legs. I love the leg drive, picking up extra yards after contact, runs with a really good pad level. He's got good vision and patience. He can one cut and get upfield quickly. He can chip in the passing game with average receiving skills. You're not going to see much in terms of his long speed. He's not going to be a home run threat or get into the open field and make people miss. A lot of issues in terms of change of direction and cutting ability, but he's a depth running back. But it has the ability to play on all 3 downs, inside gap zone run scheme. I think suits him best. I think he's going to be LSU's leading rusher this year, and we could see him elevate his draft stock due to that.
Okay, I still see people putting their Debbie picks on this next player, and he's buried down here at number 19 on our running back list behind some lesser known names. And I think people will know when I say Kendall Milton, the running back out of Georgia, senior, 6'1", 220, right? He's been on that Debbie radar. I think people are looking at the school Georgia. They're looking at his opportunity here, and they're thinking maybe I'm getting the next thing. Last year it was 590 yards, 7 a carry, 8 touchdowns, 5 receptions, 64 yards, 1 touchdown through the air. Is Kendall Milton going to be a drastic riser with a good year here, or are there other areas of concern that might hold him into a day 3 capital?
Yeah, so when I watch Kendall Milton, I think he's got great size and frame. Obviously, that's understandable right off the bat. I think he's average to above average overall athleticism. I think he's got the ability to get to the outside in terms of his lateral quickness. I think he's got some speed, especially at his size and frame. He's got good short area bursts, footwork, and one cut ability. Very good play strength, power, toughness, contact balance, physicality to finish runs, pick up extra yards, break tackles. But when you watch him, you know, I think he's going to be part of a group there at Georgia in terms of their running backs. He's going to rotate in. He's not going to give you much in terms of his passing, receiving ability, his skills there. He's not going to make people miss. You don't see a lot of agility or change of direction stuff. And I have a lot of questions on his vision, patience, and decision making. And I kind of think that's what's held him back most there at Georgia. The other guys are just better in terms of their skill sets. And I think Milton's going to be effective when he runs the ball this year, but still issues that'll push him to day 3.
I think the sort of early pedigree and the school are really going to keep people excited, but we haven't, we've seen players graduate from these big programs and not always, get the early capital. And that might be the profile we're looking at here. Number 20, Aidan Robbins, BYU senior, 6'2", 233. He's a transfer. So he was in Houston last year with 1,000 yards, 5 a carry, 9 touchdowns. He pitched it in the air. 20 receptions is a good number for a running back in college football in a season. 23 receptions, 125 yards, and a touchdown. I haven't seen Aidan Robbins from, out of, in depth, just after watching a few Houston games here or there, so what have I missed?
So Aidan Robbins, great size and frame, athleticism, movement skills, burst and acceleration, I would say is classified as average at his size and frame, but he's got good footwork, vision, patience. For him, very similar to some of the other guys we talked about, Kendall Milton, Miyan Williams, very good play strength, power, toughness, contact balance, and finishing ability. That's going to be his calling card. He's not going to make people miss in a phone booth. You don't see much agility, elusiveness, cutting ability, or lateral quickness, in terms of NFL caliber on his college tape. To me, he's a depth running back. Maybe he can work his way to a lesser part of a committee. He could be a short yardage running back. I think best in an inside power gap run scheme. I would say, the move to BYU, we'll see. We've seen some guys, have very effective seasons at BYU running the ball. So maybe Aidan Robbins could kind of ride that momentum and improve his draft stock a little bit. But right now I put him on that day 3 radar, somewhere in that round 5, round 6, round 7 range and see if he can move up from there.
Yeah, it's a good location for it to pick to transfer to. Coaches love those hammers. They love those tough runners. We talked about Josh Williams with all the heart he has, potentially even leading LSU. So is that going to keep off a name that people are going to recognize here in John Emery Jr., his backfield mate at the LSU Tigers, who's now a redshirt senior? He's 5'11", 218. Last year, 375 rushing yards, just about 5 a carry, 6 touchdowns, 13 receptions, 129 yards through the air, 2 more touchdowns. What is John Emery bringing to the table that would challenge Josh Williams, for that lead role?
So John Emery, part of that LSU backfield, not only with Josh Williams, but also with Noah Cain, formerly of Penn State. John Emery, former 5-star recruit, has never lived up to that. He always looked more explosive and had better speed in high school than we've seen translate to the next level. But we're talking about a guy, average size, good frame. I think the athleticism is just average to above. Same thing with the long speed, the acceleration. I think he's got good short area bursts. I like the footwork at times. I think he runs hard, good contact balance, good play strength, toughness, and physicality. I think he's a good interior runner, displays above average to good vision, but you don't see a lot of make you miss. You don't see much elusiveness, agility, change of direction, or lateral quickness. You don't see a lot in terms of his rushing production over his college career. Last year he had 13 receptions, but not a guy who's going to do much in the receiving game as well. So I think you're just talking about a depth running back who's going to have to vie to make a depth chart at the next level. And I think he's best in an inside gap or zone run scheme because I don't think he can do much on the perimeter.
Paul, I can't believe it. We're actually holding ourselves to time here. What have we become? We don't ramble on anymore and go into deep in depth. I think we'll have plenty of time for that as the season goes on and we focus in on these players. That gets us through our rankings, right? That gets us through our top 21 players. there's an extensive watch list, in the 2024 rankings notebooks that, when the notebooks come out, you'll get all of the names there. But just like last week, one or two names, just don't even have to hit the profiles. Let me start, right? And then I'll let you name a few and wrap us up here. Jarquez Hunter is a running back out of Auburn that, I saw flash a few times last year. So I'm going to be watching him. And then I'm going to put a name that's not on your list. I'm going to make you put this on your list. And that's Damian Martinez out of Oregon State. I think you got to get eyes on this kid. I think he's probably in, that 8 to 15 range at least, and potentially able to climb up higher.
Gonna have to get eyes on him. We'll add him to the watch list for sure. From my end, there's 3 guys that I'm keeping a close eye on. 1, Bijan Robinson's gone. Roschon Johnson's gone. Who steps up in Texas? I think Kalen Robinson is a name that we could be talking about throughout this year and could see him climb into that early to late day remix. Marshawn Lloyd transferring from South Carolina to LSU. I think that's a really interesting landing spot for him. Obviously, high-profiled offense there. With the scheme, the quarterback, the coach, everything going on there. So Marshawn Lloyd is a name to really be watching closely. And then Audrey Esteem from Notre Dame would be the last guy on the watch list that I think could see him catapult. A lot of these guys, they're probably going to be added to the scouting notebook. Full detailed scouting reports will probably be on these guys either during the college football season or after the season as well. But right now there's 21 detailed scouting profiles that we went into depth tonight. There's a whole watch list of about 20 more names, and many of those guys will be added to the scouting notebook during the season as I'm updating, analyzing, changing many of these scouting reports as I get more eyes on them for the upcoming college football season. I think it's a fascinating group of running back prospects. I think there could be so much movement at the top in terms of the top 7 guys that I talked about, and can anyone catapult themselves into that mix? How many of those guys come out? Do we have any surprises where guys go back to school? We've seen that at the running back position sometimes. Travis Etienne, Blake Corum last year. So I think that's interesting. And then there's always some day 3 guys that I classify as day 3 guys now who push their way up into the mix, who maybe falls down and we're thinking they're day 2 and maybe they slide backwards into day 3. That happens a lot also at that position because we know it's a position that NFL teams don't, want to make a heavy investment in, so sometimes there's not 6 or 7 guys who go in the top 100, and that really pushes some really talented players into the early portion of day 3 for sure. But Jeff and I'll be covering it all year. It's going to be fun to kind of analyze these running backs, see who lives up to the billing, who maybe falls down, and who maybe rises up. Jeff, any final parting shots?
No, I was thinking about a couple names that I was going to bet on falling out and names of jumping in, but I think I'm just going to wait and watch the college football season unfold.
Yeah, and I think that's the way, because I think right now a lot of these guys at the top, it's the same names in most people's top 6, top 7, but the order in which you see it is very different, right? Like, I think it was Dane Brugler has Blake Corum as his number 1 and has Raheim Sanders, like at number 7 and maybe even number 8. And then other people have Raheim Sanders at number 1 or number 2. And some people love Donovan Edwards and some people have question marks about Donovan Edwards, and some people think Will Shipley's more of a day 3 guy. And I think he's a day 2 guy. So I think there's a lot of different opinions out there in terms of what you kind of talked about before. What traits are we looking for? Are we looking for specialists? Are we looking for 3-down players? Should we be worried? How much should we be worried about size and frame, or should we be less worried about that because it is such a position now that teams want 2 guys, 3 guys? We saw what Seattle just did, right? Taking Zach Charbonnet in the second round a year after taking, Kenneth Walker in the second round. So the game is changing. The running back position is changing. How it's looked at, how it's valued is so different that I think it makes it hard. Like you say, a part of a committee backfield, and someone might think that's a knock on a player, but it really isn't anymore. Like that's just, think about Detroit. They invested in Jahmyr Gibbs after they just signed David Montgomery to a decent running back free agent deal. So it's a very interesting time now at the running back position. I feel pretty safe saying there's no Bijan Robinson. I don't think there's a Jahmyr Gibbs, but I think there's some guys that could really be intriguing And do we have a guy or two kind of separate themselves and become like the Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker, those early second round picks that teams, or maybe even thinking about late round one? I think that's possible, but I'm not ready to kind of stamp on who I think that could be, because I think there's about 7 guys that are vying for that position right now from what I watch. So it's going to be really fun for sure to kind of follow this. So on behalf of Jeff, on behalf of our sound tech engineer, David Nakano, and myself, thank you for joining us. And we look forward next time taking you from Saturday to Sunday.